that many times we have a lot of scholars that we look up to, we read their books, and we when they come to town, we run out and support the people. But often we have people who are large right here, people that who have the information that we can benefit from right in our midst, and we should take advantage of that while we can. I myself consider myself to be blessed, particularly because of the Bibles I have in this community. Bible Kilindi being one of the most knowledgeable brothers about many things I know personally. So I would like for you to help me welcome him, give him a warm welcome to Black Star Bookstore, and let's suck up this information.
Good evening and greetings. I appreciate everyone coming out and being able to share with you this evening some of my thoughts, observations, and study and research into certain areas. The title of the lecture this evening is Polygamy in the Divine Family. But polygamy is actually not the proper word. It's actually polygyny, which means where one man has more than one wife, as opposed to polyandry, where one woman has more than one man in their life. This is a very controversial subject, and it is something that has galvanized the community in different camps. Those camps usually are the male camp and the female camp. But we're going to basically run through some of the myths of what people think polygamy is, as far as it being the colloquial way of dealing with it and saying that we're going to use polygamy for this evening. My reason for basically doing this lecture, and this isn't the first one, this is the most people we've had at the polygamy lectures since we've been giving them over the years. That's basically because we've always had a section of the sister community in our greater community that has laid down a mandate, don't go down to that lecture. And, I've never seen the reason why for that, because it's not to convince anybody to do anything. It's just information and knowledge that you may or may not incorporate into your life. But I see it as an act of ingenuousness in that you say you're for knowledge, you should have a good grasp of a subject, good information on that subject, then you can form a opinion that is based upon some facts rather than fantasy. Because most people don't know what a polygamous family is, and most people don't know what a monogamous family is. Most people don't know what family is at all. We just grew up with a bunch of people, and we call them brother and sister, mom and daddy, and we basically just floating around in that group of people whom, when we get to an age where we're at the age of majority, big enough to get away from these people, we try to stay away from them as much as possible, except on a couple of days throughout the year. And those days that folks say that some folks say they don't celebrate, like Christmas and New Year's and Easter and Thanksgiving and Valentine's Day, which, has influxed into I guess what they call New African holidays, because yesterday wasn't Valentine's Day, but today is Black Love Day. And you just give a Valentine's Day card today with Black Love on it instead of yesterday with Valentine's Day on it. And this is one of our problems and misconceptions, in that we have to do what other cultures do to feel like we are doing something, or that we have something. We don't have Thanksgiving, we have the Caribou Feast. We don't have Christmas, we have Kwanzaa, and so on and so forth. And it is the same with the continuous battle that we have between man and woman because of our lack of understanding of one another. We have a lack of understanding of what spirit is. We have a lack of understanding of what spiritualism is. We don't understand where our religions come from. We don't understand where our thoughts come from. Because most of what we think is not what we're thinking. It is what we have been conditioned to think. We have conditioned response. Hegel talked about it. Wundt talked about it. These are some of the early people in the first part of the last century who created psychology. You know, Pavlov, conditioned response. You ring the bell and feed the dog. Then all you have to do to make the dog salivate and get hungry is ring the bell. This is how our school system was put together, to be able to respond to bells so that you can go and get there on time, get your work in on time, so that you can go into industry, get there on time and get your work in on time, not be independent. And what we're talking about as far as the polygamous family is concerned, we're talking about a family that is independent. Society has been set up through the banking structure, through the bankers, so that we cannot have independent finances to take care of the things that families have to take care of, which they've given that power over to the state to do. People didn't need insurance. They didn't need welfare. They didn't need people to take care of the widows and orphans because families took care of those things. Because we had a family-based society. The only area or organization that is a pertinent organization in our lives is the family unit. If we don't have strong families, then we have a society like we have now, which is totally out of whack, out of control, and it serves no one but the masters of that society, those people who put that society together, those people who set the structures of that society in place to control you and I, to control our birth, to control our life, and to control our death. That means that we only go to hospitals to get born. We only go to conform in the schools that they say we could go to, the colleges they say we can go to, going into the jobs that they say we can go into, because they structured that so that if you don't go to school and don't learn what they say and pass their test, you can't do anything. You can't travel. You can't get married. You can't have children. But if you do, then those children are called something crazy and you're ostracized, even though it's not as bad as it used to be, but it's still the same thing. And they take over your death through the funeral home conglomerates. As we talked about in the last lecture, dealing with the matrix, they control us from birth to death. And they control us through conditioned response. The response is conditioned because when a person pushes that button, they know what they're going to get. Because they've taught you and I to respond to certain cues and certain buttons being pushed. And they set the society up that way. It is no different in those people who oppose this lecture. They have a conditioned response according to what they have been taught by their masters. There are people who are trying to rise above their conditioned responses, and they come to hear information because it is information that may be beneficial, even if it is in the form of an opinion that this is something I don't want to do, or this is something that I should oppose. At least come and learn the information, and then have an informed opinion to be able to oppose that information if you think it's something wrong or something that you don't want to include in your life. But don't come without hearing and condemn without hearing. Don't come and condemn without tasting the food. You can't say the soup is good and not. Soup is in the tasting. It ain't in the looking or in the hearing. You know, they say, hey, they got a soup tasting contest down on 7 Mile of Illinois. Oh, that soup ain't no good. How you know the soup ain't good? You ain't been down there and tasted none of it. Many of us are nothing but cultural Jehovah's Witnesses. The Jehovah's Witness comes to the door, knock on the door, you get up, stumble down the stairs, open the door, and they say, have you heard the news, the good news, the new news? You know,